Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. We're here.
About 100 years ago, the British Empire came to this country with their missionaries, and they told the people that Jesus should be believed in as God. Yes, they tried to take your minerals. They tried to take your gold. The white man has deceived you. That's the truth. The white man has deceived every single one of you, the Christians.
Anga banga banga.
Bunga, bunga, bunga!
Anga banga banga.
Bunga, bunga, bunga! Now when the colonizer came over to the Golden Coast 100 years ago,
the Arab slave trade has gone on for nearly 900 more years than the European slave trade went on for. Like, what is going on with black people in the Arab Muslim world? Like, what's going on? Like, they're still enslaving black people today, and black people are not rebelling against that shit. Like, what is going on with black Muslims? Like, why are you guys so docile? I don't get it. It really boggles my mind. Like, when it comes to the European region, they were standing up, and they still do. They were like, no, we're not going to be slaves. That we'll rise, we'll rebel, we won't take that shit. But the black Muslim is like, it's like a puppy. He's like a puppy.
yes, they tried to take your minerals. They tried to take your gold.
Anga banga banga.
Bunga, bunga, bunga! The same people that came to 100 years ago. The English, the British, the colonizer. The English, the British, the colonizer.
In 641, the Arab armies established a junction between Africa and the Middle East. Their expansion into Egypt would change the continent's entire economy and intensify the demand for slaves.
Slavery was crucial to the conquest itself, and it was crucial to the sustenance of the Islamic Empire and its expansion. From the conquest itself, captives were turned into slaves, and those slaves were recruited in the army that conquered, basically, the world at that time.
C'est avant tout, justement, un commerce.
It was first and foremost a trade with economic and political stakes. Slaves were the essential source of energy. Back then, there was no oil. They were, in effect, the driving force behind these emerging empires.
The Arab troops pressed ahead as far as the south of Egypt. All along the Nile stretched the Christian lands of Nubia. There, Arabs found provisions and, above all, slaves, who they would enlist in their armies to pursue their expansion. In 769, they signed a pact with the Nubians, stipulating that hostilities would cease in exchange for 360 slaves per year.
In war, enslavement was considered a natural, a logical thing to do with prisoners. And without doubt, warfare was the major cause of enslavement. And almost everybody who was enslaved enslaved through an act of violence that was related either to war or to kidnapping or to very conscious slave raiding, which was an extension of war, in fact.
In the beginning, it wasn't a trade. It was spoils of war.
The conquest was swift. In less than a century, the Arabs had occupied the Mediterranean's southern shore. A border was taking shape, separating the Muslim world from the land of the so-called infidels. From the Kawar Valley in Niger to Makuria in the east and the Fezzan Desert region, the Arabs imposed the same conditions they had established in Nubia. They used these agreements to organize the first deportations from Africa to the Middle East. Entire convoys of captives made their way towards the world's new center, Baghdad.
With the Arab conquest of North Africa, was that a form of colonization?
Absolutely. That the Arab conquest of North Africa was a form of colonization that took place in the 7th century when Arab Muslims burst out of Saudi Arabia and conquered Egypt and went on to conquer the whole of North Africa. There were a lot of Berber tribes there. The Egyptian Copts were the original indigenous of the land, as well as the Berbers. And they were all conquered and Islamized and Arabized. That was also a form of colonization, definitely.
Now, do Muslims today acknowledge this? Are they self-critical about this? Now, do Muslims today acknowledge this? Are they self-critical about this? Now, do Muslims today acknowledge this? Are they self-critical about this? Now, do Muslims today acknowledge this? Are they self-critical about this? Now, do Muslims today acknowledge this? Are they self-critical about this?
Not to the extent that the West has become very critical. In fact, many Muslims don't even admit that there was any form of colonization.
The English, the British, the colonizer, the imperial power that came to the Gold Coast.
In fact, many Muslims don't even...
Did Prophet Muhammad have slaves?
Prophet Muhammad didn't have slaves, brother.
Yo, I'm out of here. I'm done.
So what I'm saying is,
if a Muslim does it, it's okay. If somebody else does it, it's not okay.
Yeah, pretty much.
Don't you think intelligent black men and women would now denounce a God that can be called on by the slave master, who can perpetuate his imprisonment on your people year in and year out to no avail, making us eunuchs, double castrating us, cutting our penis and our balls off, and now you tell me it is safe to study and adhere to the very religion that the man that double castrated us in the East got away with so he can have sex with our women? Are you kidding me? Explain. Why should we worship your God when he ain't do shit for black people all those years? Why?
A poor neighbourhood of Mauritania's capital, Nouakchott. Habi and her son don't have much, but even so, it's a lot more than they used to have when Habi was a slave to an Arab family. 2 years ago, an organisation campaigning against slavery rescued her from her former masters.
In the beginning, it was very difficult for me. It was very difficult to leave my masters because I thought there weren't any other options. I just couldn't imagine I'd be able to live without them.
Biram Ould Abaid works for the NGO in question, SOS Slaves. He says it's freed more than 50 slaves over the past 2 years, but that there are thousands more still out there. The slaves are mainly from the ethnic community known as the Haracene, a group oppressed for 800 years in the region, so long that slaves too often simply accept their fate as an inferior caste.
When you talk about slaves in Mauritania, you're talking about people who were born slaves. That means who work with no salary, who have no rights with their children, no right to education, and if it's a woman, she must sleep with her masters at their will.
Why should we worship your God when he ain't do shit for us?
But let's get this understood. First of all, when we using this context of slavery, we have to understand.
Are you going to answer the question? Because you did this the other night.
Hold on. Check this out. When you use the context of slavery, you have to know what slavery is, right? So slavery is to put yourself in bondage, right? To be in bondage, right? So what the white man did was not just put us in bondage.
No. Let's talk about that goddamn Arab. Let's talk about that Arab first.
We're using this term slavery and making it synonymous across the board, which is a very, very big mistake.
So the Muslims didn't enslave black people?
Listen.
Are you, hold on, before we move forward, stop. Before we move forward, I am talking about castration. I'm talking about being murdered. I'm talking about not having the right of freedom to read or write what I want. Are you saying Muslims did not do this in the name of Allah to black people?
I'm telling you, Muslims did not do that in the name of Allah to black people.
All right, yo, I'm done talking to him. Yo, we talk to you later. I can't do this. I'm not doing this. But I'm not going to let nobody tell me that Muslims didn't oppress and enslave and castrate and lynch and incapacitate, stop us from reading and writing. I'm not going to let no one tell me that. In the name of Allah, in the name of the Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that is the same damn demon that was used and called upon to enslave our people. You can't get away with that. I would be wrong to allow the people to listen to you speak any further. At least keep it real and say.
أن الإنسان لا يخجل من دينه يقول لا هذا قبل والإسلام لا يدعو إلى هذا. لا، كن قويا في دينك، أظهر دينك. نعم هذا ديني، نعم. الذي لا يرضى أن يعبد الله تبارك وتعالى فإنه يستعبد أو يدفع الجزية أو يدخل في الإسلام أو يقاتل. هذه الأحوال الأربعة أبدا، لا يوجد حال خامس. لذا أول ما يدعى الإنسان يدعى الإسلام، يقال له اعبد الله تبارك وتعالى. الله خلقك لتعبده، فإذا قال لا أريد أن أعبد الله تبارك، نقول تعيش في أرض الله ولا تعبده، ادفع الجزية. يقول ولن أدفع الجزية. فإذا رفض أن يعبد الله ورفض أن يدفع الجزية نقول له إذن ما لنا معك إلا القتال، فنقاتله لأجل هذا. فإن قتلناه فهو في النار، وإن أسرناه فهو من السبيل.
I would be wrong to allow the people to listen to you speak any further. At least keep it real and say.
There are some Muslims amongst us these days who want to go around and say, oh, Islam was never spread by the sword. That's a blatant lie. It was spread many times by the sword. The Sharia was spread by the sword. The implementation of Sharia was spread by the sword.
Now we got to get into what slavery is. So what you gonna do? Tell me about a fancy rendition of slavery that is different so we can let these motherfuckers off the hook? Are you serious? The one that is trying to present the slave master's trash to you and tell you now that they ain't enslave us. How the hell I'm gonna allow him to speak on this show? It's supposed to be for educational purposes. I don't mind disagreeing with somebody, but this ain't gonna be like the other night with Bashir when he's trying to, what's the definition of good? All this craziness. Now, what is slavery, brother? Brother, you know what slavery I'm talking about. I'm talking about us being made into eunuchs. I'm talking about us not being able to reproduce ourselves. I'm talking about us not having the freedom and the privilege to be left to our own vices so we can advance our own society or destroy it of our own free will and of our own accord. That's what I'm talking about. So let's not play crazy when we talk about slavery. You ain't gonna give me no fancy slavery, because I ain't talking about no fancy slavery. I ain't talking about no indentured servants. I know what you're talking about. I'm not crazy. I know the willing slavery, indentured servitude that people could go into and then be returned to their family. We're not gonna play games like the slavery that I'm talking about didn't transpire within the confines of Islam. That is disrespectful to black people, and you are hiding the facts on behalf of your Arab slave master. You hiding for the Arab slave master, who, in my opinion, is worse than the white slave master. The white slave master monetized slavery and made niggas think it was more impressive to be a slave under the white man than the Arab, because the Arab is so damn vicious to us. You see all those mulattoes running around in Africa right now? You think light-skinned people would naturally populated Africa? They double castrated us and raped the women by the millions. The man in the world leading and most babies ever made was a damn Muslim who had over 10,000 black men in servitude with their penises cut, and had the most women in bondage that were black women, and raped them, every last one of them. And who he couldn't rape, he let his soldiers rape them, and raped them, every last one of them. And who he couldn't rape, he let his soldiers rape them, and raped them, every last one of them. And who he couldn't rape, he let his soldiers rape them. Rape him. And that's why you see the coolie hair Arab today that look a little like he's black. It look like he has, phenotypically it looks like he has some black features. And you're gonna ignore all of that and tell me no Muslim enslaved us? You're gonna ignore all of that and see them black features on them Arabs and think that that is natural? All because you're trying to protect the law? You can't do that. Not until you admit Muslims enslaved black people. Hold on. You can't talk until you admit Muslims enslaved black people.
Admit that, boss.
Yes.
they're Muslim, but they are not Muslim.
I hear you.
The Quran.
They ain't have a Quran in their goddamn hand?
So if you show me in the Quran where it says to castrate them, then I'll say, you know what, Quran? You're absolutely wrong.
Did Prophet Muhammad have slaves? Did Prophet Muhammad have slaves? Did Prophet Muhammad have slaves?
Prophet Muhammad didn't have slaves.
Ah bon.